What about the nationalism in terms of, look, the America that I grew up competing against and admiring, there was very much a system of, if you were an American coach, you coached American athletes, and we made America great type thing, right? Like it does seem like we've moved away from that approach a little bit now, where some of the top coaches are coaching some of the top foreign athletes, and it seems to be okay. It's almost like that's kind of just accepted now, whereas that wasn't the norm before. That was looked down upon, or was even coaches were told they couldn't do that. So it does seem like, look, the world is getting smaller. Even the people listening to this podcast right now are from all over the world. You've given some of your best sets to some of the best coaches around the world. So it's not like I'm saying that we shouldn't be doing certain things, but certainly I feel like the approach America has taken has shifted for sure. It seems to, we've got away from the nationalism a bit of like, anyone can coach anyone and everybody's okay with that. Does it make sense?
Yeah, no. I think there's always, to an extent, been a process by which we've always had top foreign athletes in our country. I mean, you go back to the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and the Cal men's team, which was dominant, had Swedes and Canadians in their program, and they had great American athletes as well, but that helped them win. I think every country has had some form of athletes come over the States for the most part. I think why it's a two-pronged answer here, why it's a little bit more visual now that some of the most dominant athletes on the planet happen to be training, at their home base is in the States. If those same athletes were training here and they were making the A final in the Olympics but not winning a medal, I don't think this whole nationalism thing would be up in arms. That when you have an athlete winning gold medals for another country being coached, then suddenly, again, the house is on fire. I don't think the difference is as great as we tend to make it. I kind of fall on the side that anytime you can get the best minds, best athletes, best whomever together in a room and have them train, have them talk shop, have them talk science, I think it's good. Obviously, when we go to a competition and you have to wear your country's flag and you're trying to be the best for the best athlete in the world in that moment, you've got to be able to have some sort of distinguishing factor. I think if we look at it from a collegiate system, a college, the college coaches have to win to a certain extent because their jobs are based on that. If no one's going to retain a coach who's going to lose every dual meet, do terrible at conference, and do terrible at NC2As. They're going to get retained because they have the best program they put forward. In some cases, they have to do that by getting foreign athletes in to assist. And if that results in those foreign athletes becoming good international or better international athletes, that's part and parcel by the system we've created. The system we've created, like anything else in the world, basically comes down to dollars. If I get my bonus.
Yeah, but what about this? Like I saw Michael Phelps actively cheering on an American network at the Olympics, cheering on a foreign athlete in front of the whole world. Like the greatest American swimmer in history is cheering on a foreign athlete on national television at the Olympics. To me, I was like, I can't imagine a time when I would ever see Tom Dolan doing that.
I would say this though, if that was, again, if that was Marchand and another Bob Bowman coached American athlete swimming side by side, he'd be cheering for both equally as loud. I think that's more of a connection. Is the optics maybe not the best optics on the planet? Sure, but that's just a young athlete who's basically in some ways following in Michael's footsteps, the template that he created and how good he's become as an overall all-around athlete, and he's training under his former coach. I think you can't help but kind of root for him. Would you have loved to have him?
No, I get that. I understand that aspect of it for sure. I agree with that, but it's like the American psyche that I grew up with is that it was America first and only. Like, the only thing that mattered was America winning and American pride. And that's how I grew up. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And look, it's just not my perspective. It was the reality of the 90s. Like, you had guys that held up representing their country as the greatest thing of all. And I'm not saying Michael didn't do that. Michael certainly did that. But yeah, it just seems like the psyche of the American swimmer has changed, where it doesn't seem to have that nationalism that it used to have, and maybe the results are showing. Look, I could be wrong, but it's
No.
coming across that way.
I think it's a more nuanced conversation. I think part of that nuance is our athletes. We used to not, travel as much and do all these World Cups and all these other types of things. And you bled red, white, and blue. And when you got gathered as an American contingent, you were there to go out and be the best in the world.
Right.
It still exists. I think the notion is that now so much of our own contingent are pro athletes. They travel the world all year. They become, all of these athletes from all the countries become sort of international citizens who all know each other really well in and away from the pool. And in some cases, they're their own teammates back at whatever club or college they're training at, that the lines are blurred. And I think where you'll see the differences come back to is when you have, if I say this, it's going to sound like I'm being critical of the current system, which I'm not. But when you get back to having a strong national team director and a strong junior national team director, they're the ones, I think, that are ultimately responsible for making you say, we're going to bleed red, white, and blue and go USA and, down with the Aussies and, whomever else we're trying to race against in the moment. I think that's the focus of your top end leadership, and to bleed that message all the ways down to club level and developmental levels. I think, as of late, for good or for bad, what swimming is really become is at the top end, how much can we capitalize on the moment? And they should. I don't want this to sound wrong. How much money can we make? How much visibility can we create? All that sort of stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. I think every athlete who's made it to that level deserves everything that they can get from their successes. But I think it does dissuade a little bit from how people feel about, well, we didn't dominate the medal table. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. It's a tough call. And I think with modern swimming, the challenge is, how do you create that focus where, twice every 4 years, it's all about that flag you're wearing on the side of your cap, and it's all about the country you're representing. But the rest of the time, you're still being an international athlete, seeing countries, traveling, making new friends who may represent another nation, and expanding your own growth and knowledge and pathway. It's a fine line. I think, swimming is very much an international commodity now, and we'd be silly to think that there are not going to be great athletes who come from all over the world who are going to do impressive things. It's not going to be where any one country is just going to roll into an Olympics and get 1, 2 in every event. Those days are long since gone. But I think to answer the initial question, nationalistic fervor, I think it's there. It needs to be sort of honed in so that in the moments it needs to be there, it needs to be there. In the moments where you're, again, this may sound terrible, but in the moments where you're coaching for your own self-vested interests and the best athletes you can have gather in your pool, whatever flags they might be representing, you're going to put those best kids in the water and have them mix it up and see who comes out on top. And I don't think either is wrong. I think there's challenges to both, for sure, especially if it costs you gold medals. There's challenges. There's no doubt about it.